My girl told me she needed a month of freedom before we tied the knot. I didn't fight her on it, I actually went ahead and picked up her plane ticket to Miami myself. But just 2 hours after I kissed her goodbye at the gate, a phone call from the airport flipped my whole world upside down. Everything I thought I knew about her turned out to be a lie. We were out on the back porch when she first brought it up. It was late September, one of those evenings where the air is still holding on to the summer heat, and we had a single candle flickering on the iron table between us. Sarah always had this specific way of easing into the heavy stuff. She'd swirl her wine, stare out at the trees for a minute, and then drop a bombshell so quietly you'd think you misheard her. She looked at me and said, "Johnny, I've been doing some thinking. I need 30 days. Just for me. Before we get married." I didn't jump to say anything. Look, I'm 58 years old. I've spent 30 of those years running restaurants. In that business, you learn real fast that when someone hits you with something out of left field, the worst thing you can do is react in the first 3 seconds. So, I just sat there and let her talk. She told me I was too perfect. She claimed she was worried she didn't deserve a guy like me. Her plan was to spend 30 days alone at my condo in Miami to see if she could actually handle life without me. The way she put it was, if she couldn't stand being apart, she'd come back and marry me without a doubt in her mind. She had the whole speech ready to go. That's what really stuck with me, not the words themselves, but the fact that she'd clearly rehearsed the whole thing. I told her it was fine. I told her I'd take care of the flight. When you've been in business as long as I have, you realize that when someone gives you a story they've obviously practiced in front of a mirror, you don't argue. You just buy the ticket and see where the path leads. She got up, kissed me on the forehead, and headed inside to top off her glass. I stayed out there by myself while the candle burned down to a nub. Before I go any further, you should understand our history. Sarah and I had been a pair for years. She moved in with me after the second year. I'd been married once a long time ago, no kids, clean break. When I met Sarah at a charity gig in Charleston, I wasn't even looking for a relationship. I was 54, doing well, and pretty content with my life. She was 30, sharp as a tack, and funny, the kind of woman who could command a room full of high-stakes bankers without breaking a sweat. We got engaged 18 months later. The wedding was set for late October. We had 120 guests invited to a vineyard outside the city, the whole 9 yards. And I want to be clear, I wasn't some lonely old man who thought he'd gotten lucky with a younger woman. I knew exactly who I was and what I brought to the table. I never tried to buy her affection or her loyalty. I just offered her a solid, steady life, and for over 3 years, she seemed to love that. So when she mentioned singlehood, something deep in my chest went cold. It felt like the floor beneath my boots dropped half an inch, and I was the only one who felt the jolt. That night, lying there in the dark, I tried to tell myself I was overthinking things. It was wishful thinking, the kind of lie a man tells himself when he isn't ready for the truth yet. But deep down, I knew I was right. The next morning, I booked her a first-class seat to Miami for Saturday at noon. I handed over the keys to my place on Brickell, gave her a spare card, and hugged her by the kitchen island. We agreed on one rule: total radio silence for the full 30 days. No calls, no check-ins, we were supposed to act like the other didn't exist. That was her idea, not mine. She got a bit emotional at the door, telling me she loved me and that this break would make us a stronger couple. On Saturday morning, I drove her to the airport. She kept her hand on my knee the whole ride. At the curb, she gave me one of those long, meaningful kisses. I watched her disappear through the sliding doors in that pale blue dress she liked, her suitcase rolling behind her. I sat in my truck for a minute with the engine off, just gripping the wheel. Then I went home, brewed some coffee, and walked through the quiet house. Her closet was half empty. Her side of the bathroom was cleared off. There was a sticky note on the fridge that said, "Miss me a little, but not too much," signed with a little heart. 2 hours later, my phone rang, and my quiet morning was over. It was Dale Beaumont. We'd been friends since high school. He runs a freight outfit in Jacksonville and flies through Miami International all the time. He's the kind of buddy you can go months without calling and then pick right back up where you left off. "Johnny, look, this might be nothing," he said, "but I just saw Sarah at the airport." I tried to wave, but she didn't see me. She hopped into a black SUV at the curb. Some younger guy with dark hair was driving. He got out, put her bags in the back, and kissed her right on the mouth. I didn't say a word for a long time. Dale could feel the silence on the other end. "Johnny? You there? Look, maybe it was a cousin. Maybe I didn't see the kiss right." "It wasn't a cousin, Dale," I told him. I thanked him for the heads up, asked him to keep it under wraps, and hung up. I stood there in my kitchen with the phone still warm in my hand. Part of me wanted to call her right then and lose my mind. Another part wanted to believe Dale had made a mistake. But the part of me that won was the veteran businessman. That guy told me not to tip my hand. He told me to move while she still thought she was safe. I dumped my coffee in the sink, picked up the phone, and called my attorney, Bill Maddox. Bill's been my lawyer for 20 years and my fishing partner on Sundays. He picked up immediately. I told him what I needed, and he told me to be ready Monday morning. I didn't sit still all Sunday. I called the vineyard, the band, the florist, and the caterer. Since I knew most of these people through my own business, the calls were quick. It was painful, but by 2 p.m., the wedding only existed on paper that hadn't hit the shredder yet. Then, I started packing my own bag. Monday morning, Bill called me back. The trust I'd set up years ago, the one with the protective clauses he'd added when I got engaged, had been locked down. My company shares were safe. The engagement agreement we'd signed had a 30-day exit clause, and Bill pulled the trigger on it. "You're a free man on paper, Johnny," he told me. "Whatever you do now, you're doing it with a clean slate." I looked at the clock. From Dale's call on Saturday to Monday morning, I'd dismantled the wedding, secured my accounts, and protected my business. It took 24 working hours. Some guys take a year to process a betrayal like this. I didn't have a year. I had a ticket to Miami and a woman in my condo who thought she had a month to play around. She had a lot less time than that. I zipped my bag, called a car, and headed to the airport. Tuesday morning at 6 a.m., I was on a flight to Florida. I didn't go straight to the condo, though. That's where people usually mess up, they want that big cinematic confrontation in the bedroom. I didn't want to see her with him in my bed, I knew I'd never be able to unsee that. Instead, I checked into a hotel nearby and made one call to a realtor I'd known for 15 years. "Marisol," I said, "the Brickell condo is going on the market this week." She asked me how soon she could get in to see it. I told the realtor she couldn't get inside until Friday. I had a guest staying there until then, and Marisol didn't push for details. She knew the tone of my voice. By 11 a.m., the listing was already being drafted. That condo where Sarah was currently waking up, sipping my wine, and letting another man unpack his bags, it was already transitioning into a stranger's hands. She was essentially living in a place that didn't belong to me anymore, at least in spirit. To be honest, that felt a lot more satisfying than kicking in a door. Then, I made my second move. I knew Sarah's habits, 4 years is a long time to learn a person. On Tuesdays, she always liked to grab lunch at a Cuban spot on the water called La Esquina. We'd been there dozens of times together. It had these big windows and crisp white tablecloths, the kind of place she'd visit specifically because it was ours. A small part of me hoped she wouldn't show up, but I knew better. At noon sharp, I walked into the restaurant. I told the hostess I was meeting some folks and asked for a table against the back wall where I could keep an eye on the entrance. I ordered a club soda and sat there, back straight, hands folded on the table. At 12:20, the door swung open. Sarah walked in first, laughing at something. The man was right behind her, taller than me, dark hair, maybe in his early 30s. He had his hand on the small of her back like it was a spot he'd claimed years ago. I'll be straight with you, my heart didn't break in that moment. That had already happened Saturday afternoon during that call with Dale. What I felt now was something colder, like I was just watching a couple of strangers. The hostess led them to a window table. He pulled out her chair for her. She sat down and looked up at him with that same look she used to give me. I gave them 10 minutes, just enough time for the wine to arrive and for them to get settled. I wanted her comfortable. I wanted her exactly where she thought she was, in a city where I didn't exist. Then, I stood up and walked over. She didn't notice me until I was standing right at the table. I watched the smile slide off her face in stages. First, the light left her eyes, then her mouth just went slack. The guy looked up, totally lost, having no clue who I was. I pulled out the empty chair between them and took a seat. Stay put, I told her quietly. Don't make a scene. I'm not here for one. Sarah's hand was trembling so hard the wine was shaking in her glass. The guy started to pipe up, but I didn't even give him a glance. I kept my focus entirely on her. You asked me for 30 days, I said. You said you needed to be sure you could live without me. Well, I wanted you to know it only took me 24 hours to be sure I could live without you. She opened her mouth to speak, but nothing came out. The wedding is off, I continued. The vineyard is cancelled. That condo you're sleeping in tonight? It hits the market this Friday, and the realtor already has the keys. Your credit card is getting cut off the second this lunch is over. My company is locked in a trust you'll never touch. As of yesterday morning, you don't own a single piece of anything with my name on it. I wasn't loud. I never raised my voice once. The couple at the table next to us didn't even look over. I was just talking to her the same way I'd order a cup of coffee. The guy finally found his voice and stuttered out, "Sir, I think there's been some kind of." "There hasn't been a misunderstanding," I said, still looking at Sarah. "She's all yours. She came down here to see if she could leave me. Turns out, she can. I just saved her the trouble of pretending." Sarah started to cry, the quiet kind where the tears just track down your face and you don't even try to wipe them away. I laid $100 bill on the table to cover their lunch and stood up. I buttoned my jacket, walked out into the bright sun on Brickell Avenue, and didn't look back through the window. I was on a flight back home that same afternoon. By the time I touched down in Charleston, Sarah had called me 11 times. I didn't pick up. I sent one final text, "Bill Maddox will be in touch. Please don't call this number again." That was Tuesday. By Thursday, she was back in town, but she didn't come to my house. Bill had already updated the gate codes and sent her a formal letter regarding where to send her things. She stayed with her sister in Mount Pleasant. The guy from Miami didn't follow her. I found out later through the grapevine that he was an old flame from her college days. He'd reached out to her 3 months before our wedding, and they'd been talking ever since. The Miami trip was actually his idea. Sarah had sold it to him as her last hurrah, before settling down. He thought she was leaving me for him. She wasn't. She was just trying him on like a new coat to see if she liked the fit, planning to come back to my house and my life when the month was up. When he realized she'd intended to marry me all along, he packed his bags and vanished. I don't know where he went, and frankly, I don't care. That same week, Dale called me from a truck stop. He asked if I'd handled things. I told him I had. He just said, "Good," and we sat in silence for a minute. That's just Dale's way of saying he's proud of you. Friday evening, Sarah showed up at the house anyway. Bill had warned me she might try. I watched her on the security camera at the gate, hair down, no makeup, eyes red from crying. She was holding her engagement ring in her open palm like it was some kind of peace offering. I walked down the driveway but stopped about 10 feet short of the gate. I didn't open it. She started talking a mile a minute, said it was a mistake, said she panicked, said the guy in Miami didn't mean anything. She told me she realized halfway through that lunch that she'd thrown her whole life away. She held that ring out like it could magically undo everything. I let her finish. When she was done, I told her something I hope stays with her. Sarah, you didn't ask for 30 days because you were unsure about us. You asked because you knew you wanted to cheat, and you wanted my permission to do it. I gave it to you. Now you have to live with the consequences. She started sobbing again. I told her to keep the ring, sell it, or toss it in the harbor. It didn't matter to me. I told her Bill would handle the rest of the paperwork. Then I turned around and walked back to the house. I heard the ring hit the pavement behind me, but I didn't turn back. Her sister called me in December to apologize for everything. She said Sarah had finally come clean to the family. I told her there was no need to apologize to me, the family hadn't done anything wrong. Sarah had. It's been about 6 months now. The Miami condo sold in 11 days. The vineyard actually gave me my deposit back since I've done business with them for years. I heard her sister eventually returned the wedding dress. Sarah moved out of the area in February, somewhere up north, but I don't ask where. I still have my restaurants. I still have the house. And I still have my Sunday mornings on the back porch with the paper and a fresh pot of coffee. About a month ago, I was at the farmer's market when a woman around my age stopped me. She recognized me from her flower shop where I'd bought roses a few times in the past. Her name is Eleanor. We talked for 10 minutes about nothing important, the weather, the bridge construction, the produce. Before she left, she scribbled her number on a paper bag and handed it to me. She told me, no pressure, just if I ever felt like grabbing coffee. I put that bag in my jacket pocket. I haven't called yet. Maybe I will, maybe I won't. But here's what I know for sure, Sarah asked for 30 days to see if she could live without me. Now she's got the rest of her life to figure it out. And as for me, I got my Sunday mornings back. The candle on the porch, the quiet, and a phone number in my pocket. Turns out, 24 hours was all I really needed.